Hello, YouTube, and hello, art students. This is going to be part B of my Michelangelo videos. It looks like there will be 3 parts, so it will be A, B, and C. However, I do not rule out the possibility of a part D, and I give 2 parts to painting as well. So, as I said in my last video, which by the way, I will insert a card right up here. And I said in my last video, it's just difficult to minimize the amount of time that you devote to the greatest artist that ever walked on the face of planet Earth. So if you recall, last time we were discussing the Pietà, and we talked about the rise of humanism and the rebirth, the Renaissance, the rebirth of the classical ideas of the Greeks and Romans, and the reducing the influence of the church on everyday life. And we talked a little bit about the rise of city-states and the changing of the swing of culture from classical to romantic and back again. And then we finished up with the Pietà. We talked about the Pietà. It's a statue that a young 24-year-old Michelangelo did that launched him, catapulted him into fame, that made him into the star that he became. So the Pietà, we looked at some really beautiful images of the Pietà and how it was sculpted, the finish, the quality of the sculpting and the quality of the finish, and really just what an amazing piece it is. If you didn't get a chance to check out that video, be sure to do that. We talked about the damage done to this in a vandalism attack in the early 1970s, and then there we go. We'll finish up. So just a couple little things to finish up with the Pietà, and then we'll move on. The Pietà is, again, one of, this one is probably going to be the one I'm going to focus on for the purposes of my class, for no other reason than just because it's his first one, really. Any of his masterpieces are suitable for in-depth study, but this will probably be the one that I have my students write about. This one has something that's different, though, than Michelangelo's other work, and this has his signature. So legend has it that Michelangelo was in the chapel where this set, and he overheard people saying that it was made by a different artist. And a young, fiery Michelangelo, again, 24-year-old or 25-year-old at the time, a 25-year-old is full of hubris and passion and, all the things that a 25-year-old man is full of. So he came back into the chapel with his hammer and chisel, and across the strap that goes across Mary's chest, this right here, that's where he signed his name. So if I can, oops, wrong way. Boop, boop, boop. So if I kind of zoom in here on this one has it, boop, boop, you can see that there's lettering on there, and he wrote, Michelangelo Buonarroti of Florence made this. So a bit of a flash of his pride and ego that showed up in the statue of the Pietà. And, he didn't do this again. This is the only time. You can see it a little bit right there. This is the only time that he did this. No other, none of his other works bear his signature. So he was proud of the piece too. He knew it was amazing, and it rankled him to think that somebody else was given the credit for this. Funny little story about this sculpture. When I was teaching elementary school, I was teaching like little tiny kids, 5th graders, 6th graders. I'm sorry, not 5th graders, 5-year-olds and 6-year-olds. Oops. I was teaching like little kids, and I was telling them about, and what I was doing was talking about the Ninja Turtles. I used the Ninja Turtles: Donatello, Raphael, Michelangelo, and who's the other one? I don't know, Leonardo. So I would tell them about the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and then I showed them the real artists. So I showed them the Pietà, these little kids. And then the next day, some parents came into the school asking, "Hey, we need to speak to that art teacher." So the principal comes and gets me. She's like, "Well, I don't know what's going on." But the parents are like, "Why? What? Why are you telling my 5-year-old child that Jesus had his head chopped off?" And I'm like, "What?" Oh, so I had showed them this picture, and the slide resolution wasn't very good. But if you kind of look at this picture, the head is sort of laid back and slack. So this kid, this little 5-year-old child, didn't see the head and thought that Jesus's head was chopped off. So the parents came in and were a little concerned while the art teacher was telling or showing pictures of Jesus's head chopped off. Yeah, but then I showed them the picture of this, and they understood. Oh, okay. Oh, kids, you little kids, you whippersnappers. So here's our young 24-year-old, 25-year-old Michelangelo. He's a star. So he was commissioned by the city of Florence to make a sculpture for the city. And that's where he does this. He does the statue of David. David, arguably one of the most famous works of art in all of known human history. One of the most widely recognized, widely seen sculptures ever made. It's amazing. It's beautiful. It's incredible. It's humongous, and it really cements, no pun intended, it really cements Michelangelo's reputation. He does the Pietà, and then he does this, and you know, one masterpiece like the Pietà maybe was a fluke, but two, you double down on that, and the next thing you do is this: the statue of David. It's incredible. So the statue of David is a statue of the biblical king, the David of the Old Testament, and the story goes that David fights Goliath, and that when David is going out to fight Goliath, the King Saul actually gives the young musician his armor and says, "Well, David, wear this so you'll be protected." And it's too cumbersome, too heavy for the young man. So David casts it off and goes out to fight Goliath in his birthday suit. So this is the statue of David waiting for Goliath to approach. So you can see in his hand there, he has the stone in the sling. The sling is over his shoulder, and the strap of it goes down the center of his back that you can see from the backside. The statue, he began it when he was as a young man. He finishes it. He works on it for a few years because it is a ginormous statue. It's all told, it's 17 feet tall, and it's colossal. The way that it's sculpted, the muscularity, the bones, the joints, the ligaments, the sinews, it's unbelievable the way he creates this. So it has a very fierce gaze. So if you remember in the last video, I talked about that a classical style, which this is, a classical style is sort of a rational, tranquil, calm style, whereas a romantic style is going to be more restless, ornamental, and sacred. So this statue is very, I want to say tranquil. So when you see it, it's waiting. So David is not in action. He's waiting for action. He's calm, poised, and waiting. Because that's a classical idea, the idea of a sound mind and a sound body, the idea that you are in control of yourself. However, when you look at his face, you can see the determination and the fierceness that he's looking at his approaching enemy, Goliath, waiting for mortal combat to begin. So he's got a very intense look on his face, a very sort of a furrowed brow and an intense gaze. but then in the rest of it, the body is this very sort of calm, relaxed, tranquil, repose kind of a classical calm. Um, Here is a picture just that shows a sense of scale. There's some workers kind of polishing it up a little bit so you can get a sense of how enormous this thing is. It's huge. So, picture Michelangelo himself working on this with a scaffold built around it, carving it, and that is just intense physical labor. So if you're talking about a block of stone, a block of marble, and I don't know how much the original block weighed. I'm sure it's recorded somewhere, but let's just say it's 20 tons. That seems like a fair place to begin. It probably is more, but let's just say that's a 20-ton lunk of marble, and that you and a hammer and a chisel, boom, that you are with the physical force of your body, you're going to remove 10 tons of stone just with your physical force. It's incredible. It's just really unbelievable. The intellectual, artistic, emotional, physical feat that this statue is. It's just unbelievable. So when I say sort of repeat over and over how that Michelangelo, in my opinion, is the greatest artist that ever walked on planet Earth, I'm starting to build a pretty good case as to why that is the thing. So yeah, just an immense physical undertaking. And when he makes this, it's everyone knows, oh, this guy is something special. This guy is different. This guy is not like other artists. The city of Florence commissions this, and this statue sort of symbolizes the city of Florence. So the city wants to be thought of like David: strong, powerful, calm, rational, reasoned, measured, but not a city to be trifled with, not a city to be taken lightly, and yet a city that is that's measured in its approach and that is thoughtful. So this statue, it just serves as more than just an artistic feat. It's yeah, because it's so big. This is the way that you would see it. So your view would look like this as you look up at it. So when I show you, like the face here, the way that it is scarred, he kind of has like a heavy brow there, but that's done sort of on purpose so that when you see it from underneath, it looks correct, that you can see the sort of wrinkles and furrows of his brow. So it looks better the way that it's supposed to be seen from below. So if you are standing looking at this, your eye level would be around David's feet. So that 6 feet is down here. Dang it, this thing keeps coming up. So that's where your eye level would be, and then you are looking upward at the statue from around toe level. And yeah, just pretty impressive. And the entire city of Florence, it like, imagine this represents your, whatever it is, whether it's your team mascot, I don't know, whether it's a UK Wildcat or a whatever team represents you. When you see that, you're like, hey, that's mine. Well, this statue inspires the whole city. They love it. It's great. It's amazing. It's fantastic. And and why wouldn't they love it? It's ridiculous how amazing it is. So Michelangelo now is universally, far and wide, recognized. Anybody who knows the name Michelangelo knows about his masterpieces. So he's summoned to Rome by the Pope, and the Pope Julian, wants David to construct a tomb for him. And this is not uncommon for kings and popes and rulers to want to create a grand final resting place for them, a monument to them. So Pope Julian, he wants the best, So the best is Michelangelo. He summons him to Rome and says, I want you to make my tomb, my final resting place, a monument for all time to for my body to rest. And Michelangelo is like super excited, pumped about this. And he goes to work immediately designing this elaborate, monumental burial crypt for Pope Julian. Um, one of the centerpieces of that tomb is this statue. This is the statue of Moses. Now, Moses is a character from the Old Testament, for those of you who don't know. And Moses is the guy who goes up onto the mountain and receives the laws, the Ten Commandments from God. And the statue is, so this is one of probably my personal favorite. When I look at Michelangelo's work, I look at this one for some reason, and it just appeals to me. I don't know. It's so intense. It's so beautifully carved. It's powerful. It's strong. It's I don't know. It's a personal favorite. It's hard. So lots of times people ask me who's my favorite artist, what's my favorite artwork, and I can't really give them a solid answer. However, this is definitely going to be like top three. It's an incredible statue. The tomb that Michelangelo designed for the Pope was incredible. It would be his life's work. Michelangelo he designed a tomb that he could work on, being the 20 plus year old. This would be his life's work. He would, for the rest of his life, sculpt on this tomb. That was his plan. That's not the way it worked out, though. The Pope was a fiery, stubborn, demanding person. And now he's got this young artist, Michelangelo, in his employ. So Michelangelo is now working for the Pope. And the Pope says, you know what we're going to do? I've changed my mind there, Michelangelo. I have this painting that I need you to do. And the Pope basically commands Michelangelo to stop working on this tomb and commence working on the ceiling of the Pope's personal chapel, the Sistine Chapel. Michelangelo doesn't want to do it. He's like, bruh. He doesn't say bruh. He says, bruh, I'm not a painter. I'm a sculptor. If you want a painter, what about Donatello? He's the painter. But the Pope is not going to hear it. He's like, nope, I want you to do it. You are the star. You are the man. You are Michelangelo. I want you to be the one who paints the ceiling of my chapel. And, now you've got two stubborn people that are just at odds. You got the Pope who, like, what he says goes. I mean, he's the Pope. And not only is he the Pope, he's like a really stubborn, powerful warrior Pope. He's like, he would lead battles and stuff. He's like no kidding around Pope. And then on the other hand, you've got Michelangelo, who is just a rock-headed, stubborn. I mean, how stubborn do you have to be to pound away tons of rock to make your will overcome tons of stone, to physically remove it? How stubborn do you have to be to do that? Pretty stubborn. So the two, it is a battle to see who's going to win this contest of wills. Who's going to, is he going to paint this ceiling or not? Well, the end of the story. Michelangelo does indeed accept the commission for the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel, which is what we're going to talk about in part C of this video. But that means that he has to scale back on this tomb that he is building for the Pope. So he does indeed eventually complete the statue, the tomb for the popes, and this statue of Moses is the centerpiece of Pope Julius's tomb, and it's beautiful. It's an amazing piece of work. And I'm not the only one who thinks so. Legend says that Michelangelo himself looked at this statue and struck it on the knee with a hammer and said, "Speak." It has such life in the stone that Michelangelo just knew that it was going to come to life and talk. Michelangelo had this very mystical belief that he could, inside the stone, the figure was already there, and he just had to remove what was not necessary. He could see the figure asleep inside the stone, and this figure, he knew that it was going to speak to him. It's just powerful. And if you look, kind of an interesting little tidbit there, up on the top of Moses' head, well, you see some horns. Well, that's curious. Why would Moses have horns on his head? Like we said earlier, it's the Renaissance and it's the humanistic time. But Michelangelo is a very, very devout Christian. He's really, really deeply believes in the Christian faith. And in the early days of translating the Bible, there was a mistranslation. And I don't know which chapter and verse it is. You could probably look it up. But it says that when Moses came down from the mountain, his face radiates with light. But the initial translation was his face radiates with horns. So Michelangelo, the literal believer in the Bible, if it's in the Bible, every word of it is true, says, well, then it must be true that Moses' head had horns on it when he came down from the mountain with the tablets. You can see the tablets right there tucked under his arm. So when Michelangelo sculpted the statue of Moses, he sculpted in the required horns. So as we discussed, Michelangelo, time passes before he comes back. I mean, he continues to sculpt. And there's numerous other statues that he carves. But he's also being torn away from his passion of sculpting by these requirements that he spend time doing other things, painting the Sistine Chapel especially, which ends up ultimately taking about 16 years of his life to complete. But as an older man in 1547. So at this time, he's going to be approaching 60 years old, 60 plus years old. He returns to his original masterpiece and the love of the Pietà. And he does a second one. He starts a second one. So in this picture, called the Deposition, or also called it's also called the Pietà as well. What you're seeing here is Jesus's body, his lifeless body, has been removed from the cross, and now his slack body is being handed to Mary. So you can see Mary over here, the mother, and his body is being given to her to hold. So this is like the prequel to the Pietà that he started off with as a young man. This guy up here is probably, it's one of two people. It's a guy named Joseph of Arimathea who gave Jesus his tomb, or it's a guy named Nicodemus who was a sculptor and who helped with Jesus's body. Now, most likely this is Nicodemus, because this face is the face of Michelangelo. So Michelangelo sculpted his own face onto this statue of the Deposition, or the Pietà. It's also called the Pietà. He's put his own picture in there as Nicodemus, the sculptor. How do we know it's him? Well, there are a couple of existing images of Michelangelo, and Michelangelo put himself into a couple of his works. He makes little cameos in some of his own works. And one of the reasons that we know this is him is this guy sports a broken nose. So a young Michelangelo had a big ego. He knew that he was the cheese. He knew that he was the greatest artist at a young age, like as a boy, as a very, very young artist. And when he was training with other young artists, he liked to walk around and look at their work and say, "Ah, that's poop. Yeah, that's not very good." And another young artist got fed up with Michelangelo's ego and punched him right in the nose. So Michelangelo's profile is he has his nose is crumpled in from where he was punched in the nose as a young man by another artist who didn't like his critique. Michelangelo was not a very pleasant guy. He was a very intense, brooding, tough minded, just hard dude. And you know, he worked. He was physically powerful, physically strong. He was, you know, covered with dust and dirt from getting hammering on rocks all the time. He was just a big, powerful, strong dude who was iron-willed and didn't really much care for people too much. You know, he only had a few people in his life that he really gave too much care for. So eventually, Michelangelo was going to destroy this statue, and he did break it in a couple of pieces. You can see some of the circled pieces where this was broken. Michelangelo broke the statue. There's a couple of different reasons why. I'm not going to go into the whole big spiel of it. You can look it up if you want to. One theory is that he was just frustrated with it. He was just didn't have it didn't do what he wanted it to do, so he just was going to break it. But another theory is that this piece is an early Reformation piece where it's talking about reforming the church, and Michelangelo didn't want his name to be associated with the Reformation. So he was an early reformer of the church, but the Reformation that kind of came along with Martin Luther, he didn't really want to put his name on that. So that's the more likely reason why this piece was destroyed, or that he attempted to destroy it. It wasn't destroyed, obviously. There it is. But yeah, mystery still remains as to what's going on here. It was later finished it was brought to the state that it's in now by another artist. So it was sort of finished as it is in the care of another artist. So what you see here is not the exact work of Michelangelo, but it is primarily his work. And that's not where Michelangelo's fascination with the Pietà ends. Oh, sorry, here's a couple of nice images. That is Michelangelo's face, broken nose at all. And I just pulled these off the internet. Getty's Images, $25. There you go. Yeah, beautifully. So it's really, you know, these pieces there's a lot of pathos. There's a lot of emotion in these pieces. And this one is Michelangelo's final Pietà. And this one he was working on up to the day he died. as an old man, an 80-year-old man. And it's you can kind of see how he believed that these figures were sort of asleep inside the stone, and how he was just sort of knocking away what was unnecessary. So in this one, this again is a pietà. Um, it has the body of Jesus sort of being cradled down into the arms of Mary behind him. Uh, so this theme, this pietà, sticks with Michelangelo. It's an image he that he comes back to again and again throughout his life. Why does he do that? I don't know. But one thing you might think is that here's a person whose mother died when he was just an infant. He never knew his own mother. So, and again, like I explained, Michelangelo was not a very lovable guy. He was a tough kind of cool guy, like cold. Not a friendly, not a jokey, not a emotional guy. And he was raised in the household. First of all, in his young age as a in the home of the stonemason, and then in a home of his own father and brothers. Which is probably not the most lovey, touchy, huggy family. Um, and then later on, he goes off to become an apprentice. So here's a person who, not to psychoanalyze him too much, probably missed having a mom, and he probably felt, a deep kinship with this Jesus and Mary and the Pietà, and it was probably, in my opinion, probably very important to him, this image, and an image that stuck with him, throughout his long life, over the course of many, many sculptures. Just an image that, just a powerful symbol, probably, of love and everything that's tied up into this image. Wow, Michelangelo is again just a giant among artists. Just a person who does things that other human beings can't do. Feats of physical and intellectual and emotional and artistic skill that are unrivaled, really. Just a impressive human being. And that doesn't even include the painting that I haven't even gotten to yet. So the next video, part C, will be painting. I'll put a card for that one right up here too, so that you can just click right on it and continue right on with this. So I'll probably wait a few days to post that, if you're waiting in real time for me to get that posted. So there you have it. So, okay. Boom.